Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories for the hour. US President Donald Trump ousts White House National Security Advisor Waltz and replaces him with Rubio. Jerusalem wildfires contained after an intense 30-hour effort. High technology and artificial intelligence take centre stage at Turkey's premier aerospace event, Teknofest 2025. US President Donald Trump has removed Mike Waltz from his position as National Security Advisor and appointed Secretary of State Marco Rubio as his interim replacement. Waltz, who had come under scrutiny over a recent security scandal, is now being nominated for a new diplomatic role at the United Nations.
US President Donald Trump has made his first major staff change since January by removing National Security Advisor Mike Waltz from his key White House role. The retired Army Green Beret and former Republican congressman had faced criticism inside the White House when he was caught up in a scandal involving a signal chat among top Trump national security aides and a journalist in March. The chat reportedly shared sensitive information on a potential military strike against Yemen's Houthi rebels. However, he was cleared in an internal review. Trump announced on social media that he would be nominating Waltz to be the next US ambassador to the United Nations. Though some officials claimed he was forced out, Vice President J.D. Vance insists the move was a promotion, not a firing.
Donald Trump has fired a lot of people. He doesn't give them Senate-confirmed appointments afterwards. What he thinks is that Mike Waltz is going to better serve the administration, most importantly the American people in that role, and I happen to agree with him.
Meanwhile, the nomination of Waltz is far from a done deal. The Senate must still confirm Waltz's nomination to the UN role. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will temporarily serve in both his current role and as National Security Advisor. He is the first to hold both these positions simultaneously since Henry Kissinger in the 1970s.
Washington and Kyiv have signed a mineral rights agreement that will offer the United States access to Ukraine's extensive rare earth mineral resources, as well as oil and gas deposits. In return, US security assistance is expected to continue to provide aid in Ukraine's war effort against Russia. Our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Obey Shahbandar, has more on the significance of this deal.
The U.S. and Ukraine on Wednesday signed an agreement granting American access to Ukraine's vast mineral resources. The deal was finalized after months of negotiations and will ensure that American arms to Kyiv will continue for the time being. The deal is officially called the United States-Ukraine Reinvestment Fund, and it will last for 10 years. It'll provide the U.S. access to Ukraine's valuable rare earth metals in exchange for the U.S. security assurances amidst Ukraine's deadly ongoing war with Russia. Financial contributions to a joint fund would be made in cash, and only new U.S. military aid would count toward the American share. The deal does not preclude Ukraine from seeking membership with the European Union, a demand that Kyiv reportedly insisted upon. The White House wants to move quickly to implement the mineral deal with Ukraine, stressing that the agreement is meant as repayment for the billions of dollars of American military aid that has been provided to Ukraine over the years. President Trump said that the Ukraine mineral deal will provide an American presence on the sites of the mines that could be strategically beneficial for Ukrainian security. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the deal shows that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process that is centered on a free, sovereign, and prosperous Ukraine over the long term. Ukraine will retain full control over its national resources, and state-owned enterprises will remain state property, according to the deal. The U.S. will contribute to the fund through direct payments or through new military assistance. And Ukraine will contribute 50% of future revenue with royalties from newly issued licenses for critical minerals, oil and gas exploration. Senior Trump administration officials have said that they expect Ukraine's parliament to ratify the deal soon. I'm Ubay Shabander in Washington, D.C., A News.
Ukraine Natural Resources deal also includes provisions for oil and gas, but it mostly covers critical minerals. These minerals are vital to clean energy, defence and high-tech industries.
The minerals deal between the US and Ukraine has been signed after a protracted discussion between the parties. But what does this deal mean for Ukraine, US and supply chain? At the heart of the deal are critical minerals, natural resources essential to industries like clean energy, defence and high-tech electronics. These include lithium, graphite, titanium and rare earth elements, all crucial in the production of electric vehicles, smartphones, renewable energy systems and military technology. Kyiv estimates that Ukraine holds around 5% of the world's critical raw materials, including approximately 19 million tonnes of proven graphite reserves, placing it among the top 5 global suppliers. The country also controls 7% of Europe's titanium and about 1/3 of Europe's lithium deposits. Before the 2022 invasion, only 15% of Ukraine's mineral sites were actively mined, despite having around 20,000 mineral deposits across 116 types. Many valuable resources, including lithium and rare earths, remain largely untapped due to inadequate investment and infrastructure. The deal with the US is intended to unlock this potential.
Currently, lithium is not mined industrially in Ukraine, although lithium reserves are classified, although it is believed that Ukraine may be the second country in terms of reserves of this metal in Europe. This is not a lot in terms of global reserves, but in terms of diversification of reserves, given that there is a lot of metal in China, this is a very important and strategic point of diversification of raw material supplies.
Currently, China controls about 75% of the global supply of rare earth minerals and has already restricted exports to the US. In response, the US is looking to reduce its dependency on Chinese supply chains. By partnering with Ukraine, the US gains access to new mineral reserves. For Ukraine, the deal is equally vital. The war has wreaked havoc on its economy, with many of its richest mineral deposits now under Russian occupation. Some estimates suggest that about 40% of Ukraine's metal resources and more than half of its rare earth deposits are currently out of government control.
I am sure that the focus will definitely be, for example, titanium, lithium. If we have a sufficiently developed industry for titanium, there are many new deposits, then the situation is different for lithium. There are several deposits near the Kirovohrad region, of which there is only one license, and other deposits are either in the occupied territories or in general absolutely on the front line.
Despite the challenges, Ukraine remains optimistic about the future of its mineral sector. The government projects that the sector could attract $12 to $15 billion in foreign investment by 2033. However, there are still hurdles to overcome. Mining operations are expensive, and developing these resources will take years. Ukraine's regulatory environment is complicated, and the ongoing war adds significant risks to potential investments.
The major deal between the United States and Ukraine has sparked fresh debate over sovereignty, reconstruction, and the true cost of war.
After months of intense negotiations, Ukraine and the United States have signed a landmark accord establishing the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund. The deal, finalised on April 30th, allows for US investment in Ukrainian infrastructure and access to the country's valuable natural resources.
Thanks to President Trump's tireless efforts to secure a lasting peace, I am glad to announce the signing of today's historic economic partnership agreement between the United States and Ukraine. This partnership allows the United States to invest alongside Ukraine to unlock Ukraine's growth assets. The Development Finance Corporation will participate and help to establish this fund in collaboration with the government of Ukraine.
US officials called it a sign of enduring commitment to a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine and a step toward ending a war now in its third year.
Today's agreement signals clearly to Russian leadership that the Trump administration is committed to a peace process. It's time for this cruel and senseless war to end. The killing must stop.
But the deal has also provoked criticism abroad. On Telegram, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev accused Kyiv of paying for US aid with mineral resources, calling Ukraine a disappearing country. Back in Kyiv, the public response has been mixed.
In order for all of it to stop, we have to pay something. We pay with human lives and with Ukrainian resources. Feels like Ukraine is being raped by everyone, and it hurts. If there is a result after Ukraine gives away its resources to the US, and there is a ceasefire, then let them take the minerals.
While some expressed concern over foreign interest in Ukraine's natural wealth, others saw the agreement as a lifeline.
Let's hope for the deal to hold as promised, that it is the beginning of US support and that this war will end finally. The advantage is, as I understand, that by signing the deal, the US have certain obligations in restoring Ukraine. At least these are some guarantees.
The deal is also seen as an effort by Kyiv to repair frayed ties with President Trump and the White House after tensions earlier this year. Ukrainian officials hope this partnership will lock in long-term US support for both the military and economic recovery.
Previously, our Andy Mioch spoke to the head of Regional Security and Conflict Studies at the Democratic Initiatives Foundation, Maria Zolkina from Warsaw, Poland, about the implications of the newly signed minerals deal between the US and Ukraine. She provided her insights into what this agreement could mean for the future of Ukraine and whether a genuine truce with Russia is anywhere on the horizon.
Basically, I think that we have the best possible result if we take into account the starting position of negotiations and the harsh and pretty intense tactics used by Trump administration before. So now we have more or less constructive and rational deal, which is just the first step to establish more technical details in the next 2 to 3 technical agreements, which are to be developed and signed later. However, generally, we have omitted very significant risks and challenges which Trump demanded from Ukraine previously, and basically because of that risk, the deal wasn't signed before. So now we don't speak about giving up on sovereign rights of Ukraine to its mineral resources. Everything is still under the sovereign control of Ukraine. We don't speak about the obstacles for Ukraine's EU membership aspirations. It's directly said in the agreement that there will be no obstacles for that, and in case at some point there will be problems with this fund functioning on the one hand and EU membership requirements to Ukraine, the EU membership requirements will have a priority for Ukraine. And the third and foremost, that all the funds are going to be reinvested in recovery of Ukraine. So from this point of view, I do think we have a pretty good deal. And we do have a diplomatic result. We have normalization of relations with the US on the one hand, and basically Trump can also say that he has won something on American-Ukraine track because there was no victory yet for him. Unfortunately, I don't see any ground for substantial progress on the ground on the one hand, and therefore, I don't see that there will be a breakthrough diplomatically. Unfortunately, Trump has been caught by his own declared desire to have a fast and pretty broad agreement, which will not be supported by specific system for monitoring or verifying even a ceasefire. What even to say about the broader peace deal, which is absolutely not possible at this moment. And Russia is still playing with this Trump desire to show that he is really implementing his pre-electoral promise to bring peace in a very short term. Unfortunately, it's not possible for Ukraine to change the situation when it comes to American perception of this in the short term, but in the midterm, in a couple of months at least, until end of the year, I do think that America will lose interest in these active negotiation attempts. They will do understand that Russia is not behaving constructively here, and they will lose interest and give up on these attempts anyway.
Israel's Fire and Rescue Authority says it has contained the wildfires that raged for more than 30 hours on the outskirts of Jerusalem. Fire crews are expected to continue working at a lower intensity to prevent any new flare-ups. The fires broke out on Wednesday morning and quickly spread across more than 20 square kilometres of wooded land, fuelled by high temperatures and strong winds. Officials say a preliminary assessment points to negligent hikers as the likely cause, but a full investigation is still underway to determine exactly what sparked the blazes. As tensions mount between Islamabad and New Delhi over a recent deadly Kashmir attack, a number of tit-for-tat measures have been implemented, including the cancellation of visas and mutual airspace closures. India has also suspended the water-sharing treaty that ensures Pakistan's access to essential water resources from the Indus River system.
The Indus Waters Treaty, which had endured 65 years and 3 wars between India and Pakistan, has been paused following the Kashmir attack, further threatening Pakistan's water security. The Indus Waters Treaty, signed on September 19, 1960, between India and Pakistan with the help of the World Bank, defines how the two countries share the waters of the Indus River system. Under the treaty, Pakistan gets control of the 3 western rivers, the Indus, Jhelum and Chenab, while India controls the 3 eastern rivers, the Ravi, Beas and Sutlej. Pakistan heavily depends on the Indus River for farming and fears that Indian dams could reduce water flow. The suspension allows India to withhold crucial information on dam water releases and floods. This is not India's first attempt to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty. The first threat emerged in 2016 after the Uri attack, in which 19 Indian soldiers were killed. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's remark that blood and water cannot flow together signaled a turning point, widely seen as a trial balloon, marking the start of India's deliberate move to challenge the treaty. 3 years later, in 2019, a series of events escalated India's threat against the treaty. After the Pulwama attack in February 2019, attention focused on India's airstrikes in Balakot, but a more significant move came in August 2019. Back then, India took a significant step by revoking Article 370, effectively absorbing Indian-controlled Kashmir into the Indian Federation. This was accompanied by the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act, which split the region into 2 union territories. The changes brought land acquisition in Jammu and Kashmir under India's 2013 central law, revoked Article 35A, and repealed the J&K Land Acquisition Act of 1934, easing land ownership and acquisition for non-residents. The move followed a surge of investments. Indian media reports reveal that since 2019, over 6,851 project proposals worth more than $14 billion have been submitted. Various ministries, including railways, defense, civil aviation, transport, and power, have acquired land in the disputed territory. India has also been advancing controversial water projects, like the Ratel and Kishan Ganga dams, despite Pakistan's objections. India's move to withdraw from the Indus Waters Treaty mirrors its 2019 action of claiming Jammu and Kashmir, escalating the threat to Pakistan's water security. What the future holds is another question, hard to answer but impossible to ignore.
High technology and artificial intelligence are once again in the spotlight at Turkey's premier aerospace and technology event. This year, Teknofest is making headlines from beyond the country's borders, broadcasting innovation, independence and inspiration from the heart of northern Cyprus.
The opening ceremony of Teknofest, Turkey's flagship tech event, was held Thursday at the historic Ercan Airport in Nicosia in northern Cyprus. The head of the event, Selçuk Bayraktar, emphasized the transformative role of high technology and artificial intelligence. Bayraktar highlighted that artificial intelligence holds the power to revolutionize sectors like healthcare and education, bringing countless opportunities to improve lives. Also speaking at the event, Haluk Görgün, head of Turkey's Defense Industries Agency, focused on the importance of self-sufficiency in the defense sector.
Biz savunma sanayi alanı başta olmak üzere dışa bağımlılığın acısını çok iyi bilen bir ülkeyiz.
We are a country that understands the pain of foreign dependence, especially in defense. Teknofest has become the biggest platform for exploration in our country. It has allowed us to discover our youth, the nation's most valuable resource.
Since 2018, Teknofest has been organized annually by the Turkish Technology Team Foundation and the Ministry of Industry and Technology, with support from government bodies, private companies and universities. Traditionally rotating between various cities in even-numbered years and returning to Istanbul in odd-numbered ones, this marks only the second time the festival has ventured internationally after its 10th edition in Azerbaijan. In 2024, Teknofest drew approximately 1.1 million visitors in Adana, underscoring the event's growing regional appeal and its role in shaping a future driven by innovation and youth empowerment.
Two more mass graves were uncovered in Azerbaijan's Karabakh region, one near the city of Shusha and the other along the Askaran-Kojali road, thought to hold the remains of civilians that went missing during the First Karabakh War.
I am here in Kojali, a district that bears the deep scars of the First Karabakh War. Behind me is a newly discovered mass grave, believed to date back more than 25 years.
During a recent investigation, experts have unearthed bone fragments belonging to at least 7 individuals along the Askaran-Kojali road. Investigation results indicate that the fragments belong to civilians who were tortured, tied up and buried. Experts from multiple state bodies inspecting the site concluded that the remains belong to civilians who went missing during the First Karabakh War.
A total of 3,990 people have been registered as missing as a result of Armenia's military aggression against Azerbaijan, according to current data. Today, we are facing yet another clear fact of a crime committed by Armenia. For years, the Armenian side falsely claimed that a humanitarian corridor had been opened for the civilian population of Kojali. However, the recently discovered mass grave proves that there was no such corridor.
Through searches and identification of remains carried out in recent years, the fate of 170 Azerbaijani citizens has been clarified.
I also lost my brother in the First Karabakh War. Today I am here representing nearly 4,000 families of the missing. I share in the sorrow of their family members. It is very difficult for me to witness this scene because I too have lost a loved one. For 33 years now, I have had no information about his fate.
The cultural heritage here has been seriously damaged and looted. These crimes were committed by Armenia and the individuals representing it. Bringing those responsible for such crimes to justice is a well-established principle in international law.
Karabakh had been the site of mass killings and burials since the First Karabakh War. During the war, the Armenian military occupied Karabakh, a territory internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan, and 7 adjacent regions, including Khojaly. The town was the site of a 2-hour Armenian offensive that killed 613 Azerbaijani civilians, including 106 women, 63 children, and 70 elderly people. 487 others were seriously injured, according to Azerbaijani figures. Some 150 of the 1,275 Azerbaijanis that the Armenians captured during the Khojaly genocide remain missing, 8 families being completely wiped out. The second mass grave was found near the city of Shusha, at the intersection of the Shusha-Kankandi and Shusha-Lachin roads. At least 5 sets of remains were discovered there.
Kazakhstan has teamed up with China for a major oil exploration project in the Caspian Sea. For more on that, we go to Almaty and our Fariza Kalimurzina.
Kazakhstan's national oil company Kazmunaygas has signed an agreement with China National Offshore Oil Corporation International Limited to jointly carry out a geological exploration project in the Atyrau region in the western part of Kazakhstan. The project covers a 960 square kilometer section of the northeastern Caspian Sea. According to the agreement, the exploration will be conducted on a 50-50 basis. However, all initial exploration costs will be covered by the Chinese side. The project includes seismic surveys and the drilling of one super-salt exploration well, approximately 2 kilometers deep. If the results are promising, a second well subsalt and 4.5 kilometers deep will be drilled. Meanwhile, as China prepares to explore for oil in Kazakhstan's waters, its demand for oil already exported from Kazakhstan has plummeted. Since the beginning of the year, China has cut its imports of crude oil from Kazakhstan by 82%, amounting to an $827 million decrease. Experts attribute this slump to China's slowing economic growth and its aggressive shift toward electric vehicles. According to the State Revenue Committee, Kazakhstan's overall oil exports declined by 14% in volume during the first quarter of 2025, from 17.8 million tons to 15.3 million tons. Additionally, since the beginning of the year, 6 countries, including South Korea, India, the United Kingdom, Croatia, Poland, and Brunei, have completely stopped purchasing Kazakh oil. Experts note that South Korea, for example, is increasingly diversifying its energy sources and showing a growing preference for U.S. crude. Despite growing production volumes, exports are lagging, especially in the Asian direction. However, there are some positive signs. Shipments to Bulgaria, Spain, Azerbaijan, and Romania are on the rise. Also, new markets such as Egypt and the Bahamas have emerged. In general, much will depend on geopolitics, which continues to have a key impact on both the price environment and the geography of exports. Fariza Kalimurzina, A News, in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Keep watching A News for more updates throughout the day.